The observation deck of the Frontier's Edge was silent, except for the low hum of life support systems. Ari stood before the panoramic viewport, her reflection ghostly against the swirling nebula beyond. 3 months into the deep space expedition, and the isolation was beginning to press against her mind like the vacuum outside pressed against the hull. She barely noticed the weight at first, a subtle pressure, warm and unexpected, wrapping around her forearm. Ari's breath caught. Her training kicked in immediately. Don't panic, assess, react. Her eyes dropped to her arm. A creature no larger than a terrestrial cat clung to her sleeve. Its 6 limbs wrapped securely around her arm in a death grip that somehow felt relaxed. Its scaled hide shimmered between deep purple and midnight blue, bioluminescent patterns pulsing faintly along its spine. Most striking were the rows of serrated teeth visible through its slightly parted jaw, each one curved like a scythe. It was asleep. By the stars, Ari whispered, her voice barely audible. She recognized the species immediately from the xenobiology briefings. A Kethran juvenile. Apex predators from Kethros Prime, capable of hunting in packs and taking down prey 3 times their size. Adults stood nearly 8 feet tall with claws that could shred hull plating. This one was snoring softly, a purring rumble that vibrated against her skin. Ari's mind raced through protocols. The Frontier's Edge had picked up a distress signal 2 days ago from a Kethran vessel. They'd found it drifting, life support failing, most of the crew already dead from a reactor leak. The rescue team had swept the ship twice, finding only 3 survivors, adult Kethrans who were now in the medical bay, unconscious and fighting radiation poisoning. No one had mentioned a cub, the creature, Lek. According to the data chip they'd recovered from the Kethran ship listing crew and passengers, must have hidden during the sweeps. Terrified, probably starving, it had somehow made its way through the ventilation systems into the human sections of the ship, and it had chosen Ari. She should call security. Protocol demanded it. A Kethran, even a juvenile, was classified as a Class 5 biological threat. But as she looked down at the sleeping predator, at the way its small chest rose and fell with each breath, at the slight twitch of its ear frills as it dreamed, something stopped her. The cub had been climbing her arm when exhaustion finally claimed it. It hadn't attacked, hadn't tried to hunt. It had simply sought comfort. Humans understood that desperation. Slowly, carefully, Ari began walking toward her quarters. Each step was measured, her arm held steady. The cub's grip tightened reflexively with each movement, but it didn't wake. Its body temperature was higher than hers, she noted, almost feverish by human standards, but likely normal for its species. Her door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, Ari moved to her bunk and sat down with extreme care. The cub shifted, making a small chirping sound that seemed impossibly innocent coming from a creature designed for killing. "Easy, Lek," she murmured, though she doubted it understood Terran standard. "You're safe now." She reached for her personal tablet with her free hand and began pulling up everything in the database about Kethran biology. Diet, carnivorous primarily. Temperature regulation, required ambient temperatures of 30-35 Celsius. Social structure, pack-oriented, with juveniles requiring constant physical contact with adults for emotional development. That last part made her throat tighten. This cub had lost everyone. Its entire family, its pack, everyone it had known, gone in the space of hours. The fact that it had survived at all was a miracle. The fact that it had found her, had chosen to trust an alien creature it should instinctively fear, spoke to a level of trauma and desperation that transcended species. Ari adjusted the environmental controls in her quarters, raising the temperature. She'd sweat through the night, but Lek needed the warmth. 3 hours later, the cub finally stirred. Its eyes, 6 of them arranged in pairs across its angular skull, blinked open in sequence. They were the color of molten copper, with slit pupils that immediately contracted in the dim light. Ari held perfectly still, barely breathing. This was the moment. Fight or flight would kick in. The cub would realize it was clinging to a human, a strange creature that smelled wrong and looked wrong, and instinct would take over. But Lek simply looked at her. Really looked, with an intelligence that seemed far too ancient for something so small. Then, with deliberate slowness, it tightened its grip on her arm and nuzzled its head against her shoulder. The message was clear. "I'm staying. Ari felt something break open in her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the elevated room temperature. She lifted her other hand, hesitating only a moment before gently stroking the ridge between Lek's eye pairs. The cub's purring deepened, vibrating through her entire arm. "All right, little one," she said softly. "We'll figure this out together." The door chime interrupted the moment. Captain Okonkwo's voice came through the comm. "Ari, we need you in medical. The Kethrin survivors are waking up and—" She paused. "Why are your environmental controls reading thermal regulations suitable for Kethrins?" Ari looked down at Lek, who looked back with those impossibly knowing eyes. "Captain," she said calmly, "I'm going to need you to delay that meeting and possibly update our crew manifest. Explain. I've just acquired a very sleepy passenger, one who apparently thinks I'm her new pack." There was a long silence. "Is it armed?" the captain finally asked, her voice carefully neutral. Ari looked at the rows of serrated teeth, the retractable claws now kneading gently against her sleeve. "Extremely. And she's not letting go." Another pause, then something that might have been a sigh or a laugh. "Humanity's been adopting strays for 10,000 years, Ari. I suppose we weren't going to stop just because we reached the stars. Bring your friend to medical. Let's see if we can reunite a family." As Ari stood, Lek shifted position, climbing to drape across her shoulders like a scaly, purring scarf. Despite everything, the death, the disaster, the impossible distance from home, Ari found herself smiling. Humans had always had a gift for finding connection in the most unlikely places. Even in the cold dark between stars, that hadn't changed.